course, in the past, the majority were owned pretty well 100% by governments. And that's how they treated airlines. They treated them as a government toy to some extent to hook up a country with another country, or for governments to use airlines politically. Then, of course, we went through a period over the last few years where airline stocks were owned by private shareholders. Governments sold down their stakes and no longer own these airlines. Now, because of coronavirus, what we've got is the airlines themselves again being bailed out and potentially owned by governments around the world. And I think that will be the death of innovation if that happens for too long. Governments are not good at running aircraft. They are good at running countries potentially, but they're certainly not very good at innovating for the passenger and giving us better choice and better experiences.
Georg Klinger, your thoughts. Switzerland, it had a national carrier go under once. Your thoughts on whether or not a flagship carrier with the state playing a big role, how important is that?
I just think we could do much better by combining the different modes of transport to have trains for a short distance. We could go almost everywhere in Europe by train without any problem. And if we would have night trains, we could just sleep there and arrive in the morning. So we don't need the planes for all this. I think in Switzerland, about 80% of all travelers, they travel to another spot in Europe. So we could cut down this enormously. And I'm not sure if we stay in the current mode with the private owners of those airplanes, that this ever will happen. So we need to kind of think it together to achieve the goal of the Paris agreements. Otherwise, we'll never achieve it. And that's where I come in, arguing that it's good to have a state saying more there and have clear boundaries to where we need to arrive with the emissions of those airplanes.
All right, but of course the traveling less, it's a double-edged sword, Georg. It's a tricky one, right? Because on the one hand, if we impose stricter rules on less travel, does that mean it'll only be the rich that get to travel?
No, I think we need to think of it. I'm fully there with Paul also saying that people want to travel, but I think we need to think about what does travel mean? Does it need to be a 8 hours flight, or is it good if it's a train ride somewhere in Europe? Does it need to be far away? Can it be closer? I think there we can debate a lot. And I'm not saying that we should restrict flying only to the rich, but I think I'm saying that we should keep the air traffic within the borders of the emissions that we still can afford without risking a climate crisis that will harm people everywhere and is already harming people everywhere. And that's where the state needs to come in. So to assure that we have what we really need from airplanes, and the rest we can organize differently.